Israel said its attack on Hezbollah began before dawn and that it involved 100 fighter jets, hitting more than 40 targets. Prompted by intelligence that rocket launchers were timed to fire at Israel at 5 a.m.
We're operating in self-defense from Hezbollah and any other enemy that joins in their attacks against us. And we are ready to do everything we need to defend the people of Israel.
Hezbollah countered that it had fired more than 320 rockets at 11 Israeli military sites, portraying this strike as a success. One Israeli soldier was killed aboard his patrol boat after an Israeli missile hit an incoming Hezbollah drone. This house in the Israeli north was badly damaged, but Hezbollah's leader said this afternoon that his main target was a military intelligence base close to Tel Aviv.
Our military operation was completed as planned with precision. We will assess the impact of today's operation. If the results are not sufficient, we will respond another time.
Israel's Prime Minister said thousands of Hezbollah rockets were destroyed before takeoff and that all their drones were intercepted. Yet he suggested that further military action was inevitable until the Hezbollah threat was removed.
3 weeks ago we eliminated their chief of staff, and today we foiled their attack plan. Nasrallah in Beirut and Khamenei in Tehran should know this is another step on the path to returning our residents safely to their homes. I repeat, this is not the end of the story.
Israeli passenger flights were either diverted or delayed, but by 7 a.m. this morning the country's main airport had reopened. Across the border in Lebanon, it was a day at the beach, despite the aftermath of explosions in the background. Israel's foreign minister said his country was not seeking full-scale war, and Israel's military supremacy seems to have prevented that from breaking out today. The USS Abraham Lincoln has now arrived in the region. The threat of direct conflict with America has apparently deterred the Iranians. But not Hezbollah, though they too are now looking much weaker than their rhetoric suggests. Israel's Iron Dome defences clearly did their job, and though Hezbollah calls this only the first stage, Iran's so-called axis of resistance has failed to deliver the kind of blow which many Israelis feared.
Well, earlier I spoke to former Israeli Army intelligence officer Zarit Zehavi from the Alma Research and Education Center, which focuses on security issues on Israel's northern border. I asked her first if she thought a wider conflict was now more or less likely.
Truly, I don't know if it's more or less likely. All I can say is that it looks like the rationale of Hezbollah is to continue this war of attrition while we have in Israel 43 empty ghost towns, empty communities that were evacuated at the beginning of the war. This is a strategic advantage for Hezbollah achievement, and they want to preserve it even with the cost of war. They are willing to take the risk. Israel, on its side, wants to bring the people back to their homes, but safely.
In the last hour, the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah has been speaking. He has been saying that they did not target civilian areas within Israel. Doesn't that signal that Hezbollah do not want a wider conflict and a wider war?
This is a complete lie. I am awake since 4:30 a.m. today, first from the IDF attacks and then by Hezbollah. We ran to the shelter. All the people of the Galilee ran to the shelters today. Hezbollah is using inaccurate weapons and then saying that it targeted military bases, and that way it is putting at risk all Israelis that are living up north.
Well, Hezbollah were responding, they say, to the assassination of their commander, Fuad Shukr. How on earth then does Israel carrying out that assassination make Israelis more safe if this is the response?
First, I agree. It doesn't make Israelis more safe just to kill senior commanders of Hezbollah. But eliminating capabilities of Hezbollah will make Israelis more safe.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this is not the end of the story in terms of Israel's response to Hezbollah. What is the end of the story?
No, I want to clarify. It's not the end of the story, not in terms of the Israeli response. It's not the end of the story in terms of the question of how do we bring our people back to their homes, living next to the border.
Don't you think that there's no resolution to the situation in the north of Israel, between Israel and Hezbollah, until there is a ceasefire in Gaza?
I think it has nothing to do with the ceasefire in Gaza. I will surprise you, and I'll tell you why. Because even if there will be a ceasefire in Gaza, that will be followed by a ceasefire in the north. In this, I believe to Nasrallah. It doesn't mean that we will be able to live here safely. I want an effective mechanism that will make sure that Hezbollah is no longer in South Lebanon. I think this is a very simple demand for the people who are living here.
A simple demand, you say, but is it at all a realistic demand? The demand of eliminating Hamas and Hezbollah, it's just not going to happen, is it?
So what? We are doomed to live with the risk of the next massacre to our children? Do you think this is acceptable? Would you live like that? I think international community and the state of Israel can work together, and we already did. We did that in mid-April.
Sarit Zahavi, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.